Hello everyone, welcome back. In our today's video, we are going to be discussing about the human brain, which is the most important processing center of our body. Human brain is an amazing organ which controls all the activities which are happening in our entire body. An adult human brain weighs about 1400 grams. This most important organ is very well protected by a bony case which is called as the cranium. Cranium is also known as the skull or the brain box. So this protects the brain very well from the mechanical injury. Apart from this, additionally the human brain is protected by the three membranes which are known as the meninges. The outermost membrane is called as the dura mater. The word dura means tough and mater means membrane. The next membrane is known as the arachnoid membrane. The word arachnoid means spider. This is the middle membrane and it is present in between the dura mater and the pia mater. So the reason why it is called as arachnoid membrane is because its appearance is like a spider web and therefore it is known as the arachnoid membrane. The innermost membrane is called as the pia mater. The word pia means soft and mater means membrane. This is the innermost membrane and it is very soft and delicate. So these three membranes are collectively known as the meninges, which provides additional protection to the brain. Now let's move on to discuss about the different parts of the human brain. Human brain is divided into three main parts: the forebrain, midbrain and the hindbrain. Forebrain consists of cerebrum and the diencephalon. Cerebrum is the largest portion of the brain and it occupies about 2/3 of the entire volume of human brain. Cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres as the right cerebral hemisphere and the left cerebral hemisphere by a deep cleft which is known as the median cleft. The two cerebral hemispheres are interconnected by a band of nerve fibers which is known as the corpus callosum. Now the cerebral hemispheres consist of two distinct regions, the outer grey matter and the inner white matter. So this is the outer grey matter and the inner white matter. The grey matter is also known as the cerebral cortex and the inner white matter is called as the cerebral medulla. The grey matter of the cerebral hemisphere are made up of the cyton of the neuron and the white matter or the cerebral medulla is made up of the axons of the neuron. So when I say the white matter is made up of the axons of the neuron, the axons which are present in the white matter are covered with the myelin sheath. That is why it is white in color. Now, the cerebral cortex consists of a lot of convolutions. Convolutions are nothing but the coils which you are seeing right now. So, these convolutions are associated with the intelligence of a person. It is believed that more the number of convolutions, more intelligent a person is going to be. Now, when we take a closer look at these convolutions, there is a elevated portion which is known as the gyri and a depression which is known as the sulci. So this gyri and sulci will increase the surface area of the cerebral cortex, thereby helping the cerebral cortex to accommodate more number of neurons. Now let's move on to discuss about the cerebral lobes. The cerebral hemispheres are divisible into four cerebral lobes. The four cerebral lobes are frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe and the temporal lobe. The work of the cerebrum is to control all the voluntary activities and each of this lobe has got a specific function which it is going to be performing. Now let's take a quick look at what are the functions of each of this lobe. So first let's talk about the frontal lobe. Frontal lobe is located in the front region of the brain and it is actually located near the forehead area of our brain. And this frontal lobe is associated with intelligence, problem solving abilities, and it is also associated with the ability to retain memory. Then the frontal lobe also helps in planning, thinking, decision making and the creativity. So if you are able to perform all these activities properly in your day-to-day life, it is very evident that this particular lobe is functioning really well. Now let's go on to discuss about the next lobe, which is the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is located in between the frontal lobe and the occipital lobe, and this parietal lobe is associated with language processing. So what is this language processing? Language processing is the way in which humans use words to communicate ideas and feelings. And then this particular lobe is also associated with your writing skills. And this lobe is also associated with the knowledge of numbers. So if you are able to solve math problems really well, then this particular lobe of yours is functioning very well. Now let's go on with the next lobe, which is the occipital lobe. Occipital lobe is located in the rear end of the brain, and the work of the occipital lobe is to help in visual perception, and it also helps an individual to identify the different colors. The last lobe that we are going to be discussing is the temporal lobe, and this lobe is located just below the parietal lobe. Temporal lobe is associated with auditory perception, which means the ability to hear. Apart from this, the cerebral lobes are also responsible for controlling your imagination and your emotions. Okay, if any of this lobe is going to be damaged, then the particular function which these lobes are performing is going to be affected drastically. Now let's go on to discuss about the next part of the brain, which is the diencephalon. So diencephalon consists of two parts. One is the hypothalamus and the other one is the thalamus. Now let's discuss about the thalamus. Thalamus is also known as the relay center. Thalamus is present in the cerebral medulla of the brain, and it is the major conducting center for sensory and motor signals. So this thalamus acts as a relay center, or it is going to act like a hub. So through the thalamus only, all the information, sensory as well as the motor signals, have to be traveling through the higher centers of the brain. Now let's discuss about the next part of the diencephalon, which is the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus is a very important part which is going to control the involuntary activities of our body. So now let's take a look at what are the activities which are controlled by the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is a very important link between the nervous system and the endocrine system. The endocrine system is going to produce the hormones. In our upcoming videos, we will discuss about what are hormones and how are they produced and all. Alright, now the next function of your hypothalamus is that it is going to control involuntary actions like hunger, thirst, sleep, sweating, anger, and fear. The hypothalamus is also going to act as a thermoregulatory center. So what is this thermoregulatory center? The word thermo means temperature, and this hypothalamus is going to have a control over our body's temperature, and that is why it is known as the thermoregulatory center. I hope you understood about the forebrain. Now let's go on to discuss about the next part of the brain, which is the midbrain. So the midbrain is located in between the thalamus and the hindbrain, and the work of the midbrain is to connect the forebrain to the hindbrain. The midbrain consists of four small rounded bodies which are known as corpora quadrigemina. So this corpora quadrigemina plays a very important role to control your visual reflexes and the auditory reflexes. It simply means it is the ability to see and the ability to hear. So now let's move on to the last part of the brain, which is the hindbrain. So the hindbrain consists of three important parts: the cerebellum, pons, and the medulla oblongata. Now first let's discuss about the cerebellum. Cerebellum is the second largest part of the human brain, and it controls the voluntary activities. Cerebellum helps to maintain your body balance, and it also helps you to maintain a proper posture. Now I will give you a simple example where you will be able to understand what is the actual work of the cerebellum. When a person consumes alcohol, What basically happens, you must have noticed that that particular person, if he is going to consume a lot of alcohol, he will not be able to walk in a proper straight line. So if a person consumes alcohol, it is going to have an immediate effect in the cerebellum. So when the cerebellum is affected, it is in turn going to affect the body balance of an individual. That is why people who are alcoholic are not able to walk in a straight line and maintain a proper body balance. Alright, now let's go on to the next part of the hindbrain, which is the pons. So pons is going to control the involuntary actions. Pons conduct signals between cerebellum, spinal cord, midbrain and the cerebrum. Pons is also going to control the respiration, and it also controls our sleep-wake cycle. So what is this sleep-wake cycle? Sleep-wake cycle is nothing but a daily pattern that determines when it's time for you to sleep and when it's time for you to be awake. Apart from the pons, the sleep-wake cycle is also controlled by an hormone which is known as melatonin. Now let's move on to the last part of the hindbrain, which is the medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata is a center for many activities. Medulla oblongata is going to control vomiting, salivation, circulation, respiration as well as digestion. Now let's quickly recall the parts of the human brain. The human brain is divided into three divisions as the forebrain, midbrain and the hindbrain. Forebrain is further divided into cerebrum and the diencephalon. Midbrain consists of four small rounded bodies which are known as corpora quadrigemina, and the hindbrain is divided into three parts again as the cerebellum, pons and the medulla oblongata. So this is about the structure of the human brain. So if you have any doubts regarding the structure of the human brain, you can please leave a comment below. Thank you.